History remembers the victors, the ones who built empires that lasted for centuries. But what about the rulers who held immense power, commanded vast armies, and lived in unimaginable luxury, only to be erased from the history books? Today, we're diving deep into the forgotten thrones, uncovering the stories of monarchs who ruled everything. Right before their world came crashing down, these aren't just tales of defeat. They're stories of hubris, betrayal, and catastrophic miscalculation. Let's start with a king you've probably never heard of, but whose wealth would make today's billionaires look poor. Meet Croesus, the last king of Lydia, an ancient kingdom in modern-day Turkey. His name was once synonymous with wealth itself. He ruled a kingdom sitting on a literal gold mine, the river Pactolus, which was said to be filled with gold dust. Croesus controlled the world's first true gold and silver coins, making him the financial powerhouse of the 6th century BC. He built magnificent temples and sent lavish gifts to the oracle at Delphi, hoping to secure his future. But wealth can't buy wisdom. The oracle gave him a famously ambiguous prophecy. If he attacked the rising Persian Empire, he would destroy a great empire. Brimming with confidence, Croesus marched to war, only to see his own empire crumble. He had indeed destroyed a great empire his own. Captured by Cyrus the Great, Croesus went from the richest man alive to a prisoner, his name becoming a cautionary tale about the dangers of pride. Lydia was absorbed into Persia, and its once mighty king was almost completely forgotten. Now, let's journey from ancient Anatolia to the heart of Africa, to the Mali Empire. We've all heard of Mansa Musa, the richest man in all of human history. But what about the ruler who came after him? His son, Mansa Magan. Magan inherited an empire at its absolute zenith of power, influence, and wealth. The Mali Empire controlled the trans-Saharan trade routes, holding a near monopoly on gold and salt. Its universities in Timbuktu were centers of learning that attracted scholars from across the globe. Magan had it all. But unlike his father, he lacked the vision and the strength to maintain it. He ruled for only 4 years. During his brief reign, rival factions within the empire began to fracture its unity. Neighboring states, once vassals, saw an opportunity. The Masi people raided Timbuktu, and the empire's grip on its vast territories began to loosen. Magan's short and ineffective rule marked the beginning of the end. He was succeeded by his uncle, but the damage was done. The slow, painful decline of the once unbeatable Mali Empire had begun, all because one heir couldn't fill the shoes of his legendary father. Next, we travel to the New World, to an empire that rose and fell in the blink of an eye. The Aztec Empire wasn't an ancient dynasty. It was a relatively young power that had violently consolidated its control over Mesoamerica in less than a century. At its peak under Moctezuma II, its capital, Tenochtitlan, was one of the largest and most sophisticated cities in the world, a breathtaking metropolis built on a lake. Moctezuma ruled as a god-king over millions of people. His palaces were filled with botanical gardens, zoos, and treasure rooms, overflowing with gold, turquoise, and feathers. He commanded an army that was feared throughout the region. When strange ships appeared on the coast in 1519, carrying men with pale skin and fire sticks, Moctezuma was faced with a challenge unlike any his ancestors had ever known. Was this the prophesied return of the god Quetzalcoatl? His indecisiveness, a mix of religious superstition and political strategy, proved fatal. He welcomed Hernan Cortes into his city, a decision that would lead to his own capture and the eventual siege and destruction of Tenochtitlan. In just 2 years, the mighty Aztec Empire, with all its power and glory, was brought to its knees by a few hundred conquistadors and their native allies. Moctezuma's throne, once the center of the world, was toppled, and a civilization was lost. Let's shift our focus to India, to the dazzling but short-lived reign of the last independent Nawab of Bengal, Siraj-ud-Dowlah. He ascended to the throne in 1756, at just 23 years old, inheriting a region that was one of the wealthiest in the world, a major hub for textiles and trade. Bengal was so rich it was known as the Paradise of Nations. But Siraj-ud-Dowlah also inherited a growing problem: the British East India Company. The company was expanding its fortifications and abusing trade privileges, acting less like merchants and more like a rival power. The young, hot-headed Nawab decided to put them in their place. He captured their base at Calcutta, an act that triggered a swift and decisive response from the British. Led by Robert Clive, the company forces didn't just rely on military might. They used deception. They found a disgruntled commander in Siraj's army, a man named Mir Jafar, and promised him the throne in exchange for his betrayal. At the pivotal Battle of Plassey in 1757, Mir Jafar and his forces stood down, ensuring a British victory against a much larger army. Siraj-ud-Dowlah fled, but was soon captured and executed. His reign lasted just over a year. With his fall, Bengal's vast treasury was plundered, and the British East India Company began its transformation from a trading entity into the de facto ruler of India. A single act of betrayal toppled a throne and set the stage for 2 centuries of colonial rule. Our final story takes us to the vast plains of Central Asia, to the man who almost became the next Genghis Khan. His name was Timur, also known as Tamerlane. In the late 14th century, he carved out a colossal empire, stretching from India to Turkey. He was a brilliant but ruthless military genius who saw himself as the restorer of the Mongol Empire. His capital, Samarkand, became a jewel of the Islamic world, filled with stunning mosques and palaces built by artisans captured during his campaigns. Timur was undefeated. He crushed the Ottoman Sultan, sacked Delhi, and defeated the Golden Horde. By 1405, he was an old man, but he was preparing for his most ambitious campaign yet, the conquest of Ming China. He assembled a massive army, said to be over 200,000 strong, and began his march in the dead of winter. This was to be his crowning achievement. But the one enemy Timur could not defeat was nature itself. Caught in a brutal winter, the conqueror fell ill with a fever and died before he ever reached the Chinese border. With his sudden death, the invasion of China was abandoned. His empire, held together by his personal power and sheer force of will, immediately began to splinter. His heirs fought amongst themselves, and within a few decades, the mighty Timurid Empire had fractured into smaller, weaker states. The man who ruled from Persia to Russia died on the brink of his greatest conquest, and his empire fell apart almost as quickly as he had built it. From the Golden King of Lydia to the would-be conqueror of China, these stories show us a crucial truth. Power is fleeting. Wealth can vanish overnight, and a single mistake, a moment of weakness, or an act of betrayal can bring even the mightiest empires to ruin. Their thrones were forgotten, not because they were insignificant, but because their fall was so swift and so absolute that history barely had time to write their names down before moving on. These are the ghosts of power, the rulers who teach us that the higher you climb, the harder you can fall. Thanks for joining us on this journey through the graveyards of empires. If you enjoyed uncovering these lost histories, make sure to hit that like button and subscribe for more deep dives into the stories you thought you knew. Let us know in the comments which forgotten ruler you find most fascinating. See you next time.